our first interactions with Eazy-E were before he became famous. He was down there in Kelly Park. So Kelly Park was a huge gang hangout. And he'd be down there, and me and Tim would go down there, and he'd take off running. And we arrested him one time for selling drugs too. So it was kind of funny because he'd be over there with a big crowd. So if we arrested somebody else, we'd be walking him back to our car, and he'd be out there with a whole bunch of group, and he'd be actually rapping about us taking this guy into custody, just street rapping, you know? Just like we're walking him back to the car, and they're all in the park, they're like 20 deep, and he'd be out there just rapping away, right? And we didn't think nothing of it this time, but hey, he became famous and put Compton on the map. Right in the north side of Compton, actually it's in Looters Park, Mob Piru territory. There was an old Sears building. It was huge, and they turned it into a swap meet. So we start getting calls of these guys. They said they're selling tapes out there. So the owners or the guys that were renting out all the spaces in the swap meet were pissed off because there would be 50 to 100 people around these cars, right? We didn't know what was going on, right? So we went up there, and sure enough, it's Eazy-E and the rest of the crew. They're out there, and they had the back of their Jeep, and they're selling tapes before they became famous. So we went over there, me and Tim went over there and talked to you, what's going on? Because we only knew Eazy-E as like a drug dealer over there in Kelly Park, right? So we thought it was kind of a ruse for him trying to sell dope out of his car in the swap meet. But I mean, there was literally 50 to 100 people there all the time. So basically we had to tell them, hey man, these guys are pissed off. You can't be selling these tapes out here. And they would leave, but the next day they'd show right back up, and it just took off from there, so.
Do you ever interactions with like Dr. Dre? Do you remember?
No, the only time, I think he was up at the swap meet a couple times, and they were actually pretty cool when we had our interactions with them. It wasn't like F the police or anything, because we were dealing with them at the swap meet. But after they became famous, they actually did a shoot over there in Palmer Blocks area on Magnolia Street. It was a video shoot for MTV, and so we had no idea. Me and Tim, they asked us to do security just to make sure nothing happened out there. And there was 1,000 people out there, and it was a big thing because N.W.A, because I didn't listen to rap back then. I didn't know who they were. So me and Tim get out there, and there's 1,000 people out there. So we're walking over by the trailer, and Eazy-E comes out, and Dre and Cube, and they're standing all out there, and they said, hey man, Blondie, come get some food off the table and everything, right? I mean, they've always were cool to us. So they were cool though. So we were there for a few hours and while they did their shoot. So that was really about the only other interactions we had with them. Suge Knight, he lived over there in Mob Piru territory, and we had a couple of run-ins with him, but he wasn't a gangster and he never was hanging out. He just grew up in the neighborhood. I think we arrested him one time because he had a warrant out for his arrest, and it happened to be over at Mob James' house. And Mob James' mama's house over there on McMillan was a couple doors down from my boss's mom's house. So Reggie knew all of them. My boss, Reggie Wright, he knew all of them. And
that's Reggie Wright Sr.
Reggie Wright Sr., right? So the McDonald house, though, was a hangout for Mob Piru, Looters Park. I mean, they were always 15 deep when you go there, and we had a ton of run-ins with them. Now, I never really had run-ins with Mob James, but Timmy Rue and Buntry, whatever, we had run-ins with them, and it was always crazy when we went over this house, but they called Reggie Sr. up and they said, Suge Knight's hiding in his house, right? Because we were down there ready to walk down, and Suge Knight was supposedly in the closet inside the house. So Reggie and us, normally we have to be fighting our way in or whatever, right? So, but Reggie Sr., who knew him, his mama grew up 2 doors down, he walks right in, walks right in the house. They don't say nothing. We follow him, and we fight Suge hiding in the closet, and Reggie goes, he goes, Suge, get your big ass out of that closet, right? And we took him into custody for a warrant that he had. It was actually, it was for assault with a deadly weapon, but they pleaded down. It ended up being nothing. But that was really our only other run-ins. And after he started Death Row Records, he'd be up like at the swap meet on Thanksgiving. He'd be handing out turkeys. Or they had a concert at free concert at Luther's Park, and they had Snoop Dogg and Tupac and a couple other people. So we'd have we'd go up there and say, hey man, we don't want no trouble as soon as something gets out of hand. But it was always Reggie Sr. kind of at the forefront because he knew all them guys because he grew up in that neighborhood. But that was our interactions with Suge, basically.
Do you remember any other specific incidents of going over to Buntry's place? Because I heard it was just chaos on that street with them there.
It was, I don't remember specific, but I remember police officers used to ask for, send me code 3 backup. They called it code 9 in Compton. And everybody would have to go out there and they'd be fighting with gangsters because there'd be guns, they'd have guns. Whenever there's a group of gangsters in front of the house, they're not gonna get caught slipping. So somewhere in the car, in the bushes, they're gonna have guns or even on their person, especially when they're like 5 or 6 deep. Always, it's just an unwritten rule that they're gonna be armed because they're not gonna get caught slipping. So officers would go up there all the time and arrest people for selling drugs or possession of weapons, but it usually turned into a fight because Timmy Rue or his brother and a couple of the other guys, they would be out there, and you have a guy like Neckbone. I always said, man, I don't want to fight Neckbone. He was a big old dude back then. He's still a big old guy. I saw him on a video the other day. But these are guys I go, man, I don't want to fight with this guy, man. He's gonna think. But it was always chaos when we went to Mob James' house.